the movie releases are affected by the World Cup, do they look at this enormous... obviously you don't know the whole thing's taking on at all, but...
It had actually occurred to me recently that there were a couple of football films on the way, because there was that thing Once in a Lifetime, which I liked very, very much, which was a film about how the Americans don't really understand soccer, but how, on the other hand, thanks to Warner Brothers, they managed to buy Pelé in this enormous... which I really, really enjoyed. And then, of course, this week... today, in fact, there is this movie released, Offside, which is that rarest of things, a light-hearted Iranian gender-based football comedy. And I can say right now, you can put it on the poster, it's going to be the best light-hearted gender-based Iranian football comedy of the year.
In the world ever.
Exactly. And of course, it's out today, and it's opening the World Cup, but it wasn't until a couple of hours ago that I realised that was the case.
And is it any good?
Shall I tell you about it?
Yeah.
Well...
I suppose you can't play us a clip, because it's presumably in Farsi.
It is, and although, funnily enough, there are some... Don't look at me whether that's... there are some clips which you probably could understand, which is crowds of people going, Iran, Iran, and it's
not to that tune.
To that tune, except the words are Iran. That's it. Okay, so anyway, it's ideal for me, basically, for a number of reasons. Firstly, although it is a football movie, there is no football in it at all, other than very briefly in the background. It was filmed around the Iran... Now, I'm going to pretend as if I know this, but I only know this because I read it. The Iran-Bahrain match, which they fought, whatever it is, in 2005, which meant that Iran qualified for the World Cup. So presumably they are now here amongst the teams that are about to go and do for the World. That's correct. I'm looking at you for reassurance. That's right, is it?
Yes, and you said you knew their fixtures, so...
Yeah, I do. Well, I've got to... You want me to tell you how they're doing? Coming up, those Iran matches in full, they play Mexico on the 1st of June in Nuremberg. They play Portugal in Frankfurt on the 17th of June. And they play Angola on Wednesday the 21st in Leipzig, or Leipzig. Let's call the whole thing off. So, anyway, I don't know whether if you get knocked out of one, will they necessarily play all three matches?
Yeah, you play the... It's like explaining it to a toddler. OK, what happens is, in the first round... Okay,
imagine how much my kids enjoy asking me about football.
That must be a very disappointing conversation. In the first round, every team in each group plays each other.
So everyone plays everyone?
In their group.
Right.
OK. You've just read out the other teams in Iran's group. Then there's a second stage.
Is that what I did?
It now becomes a knockout.
Oh,
okay,
right.
and then if you lose a game, you're then out. Second stage, quarter-final, semi-final, final. Just stick to the movie.
Clear as mud. So, the inspiration for it was apparently, and this is even further history, 8 years ago, Iran beat Australia and therefore qualified for the World Cup. I mean, again, who knew?
That's
apparently
right.
A bunch of people. I didn't know that.
Managed by Terry Venables.
Really?
Australia at the time.
I thought you meant Iran.
No. So, who knows?
It seemed unlikely.
He may well end up there.
OK, fine. So, apparently, after that win, the team came back home and women were allowed to celebrate. And this was quite a big deal because they're generally not allowed to join in that sort of thing. And the director... Jafar Panahi, who is a very well-known director, although his films are regularly suppressed in his home country, they are quite well-known around the world, went to a football match sometime afterwards, and his daughter tried to come with him, and she was refused entry to the ground because this is apparently the standard practice. You don't allow women into the ground because it's a bunch of men swearing and behaving badly, and this is considered that it would be a bad influence. Although actually there's one lovely bit in Offside at the beginning of it in which some of the men say that's exactly why they like to go to the football match, because they can curse and nobody will interfere with them because, hey, it's a football match. But then his daughter managed to sneak in, and apparently one of the ways that people manage to sneak in is by dressing up as boys, and this is quite a common occurrence. So he decided to make a movie about girls and women attempting to go to see the World Cup match. In this case, Iran versus Bahrain. Now, obviously, on paper, this sounds like a total dead loss to me. I don't know any of the teams, I don't know any of the rules, I don't know any of the cultures, I don't know any of the customs. I'm completely like a fish out of water. It's really terrific. Number of lovely things about it. The first thing is, some people have said that it's they've compared it to Bend It Like Beckham. Though I actually thought it was much closer in tone to sort of Bill Forsyth movies. It's really genuinely gentle, but in a kind of melancholic and insightful way. We follow a group of girls and women attempting to get into the game. Some of them are dressed as boys. One of them is dressed as a soldier. They're all kind of detained and rounded up near an entrance to the game, so they can't see the game. And the soldiers that are guarding them don't want to be guarding them, but on the other hand, they can't let them go. And one of the soldiers agrees to start commentating on the game from his vantage point, which is peering through the gate. Meanwhile, they're all trying to, get out and get back into the stadium. One of them says that she has to go to the toilet, which leads off this fantastically funny sequence where, in order to be taken to the male-only toilets, because there aren't any female toilets, obviously there aren't supposed to be any women at the game, they have to get her to wear a cardboard cutout of a footballer on her face. And then they put holes in the eyes so that she can see. But then they realise that in the toilet there is obviously graffiti, which is effectively men cursing and swearing, so she has to... Anyway, believe me, I know when I say it like that, it doesn't sound funny. But in the movie, it's
the way you tell them.
It's really, really charming. It's great for me, if you're a complete outsider to football, because what it's about the enthusiasm. It's about people really wanting to be part of the game, really wanting to be part of a sort of, a national event.
Is there an umpire band?
No, there's not an umpire band, but there is an umpire band out there in the street.
Let's just listen. No, actually, I think I'd rather listen to your criticism.
They were playing Deck the Halls with Boughs of Holly, weren't they?
What more frankly could you ask? An umpire band and a movie review all happening at the same time.
And it transpires that some of the women who are not being allowed into the game actually play football, because they play football in the women's football games, which are attended only by women. The reason I like it is, as somebody who genuinely, and I'm not being funny now, somebody who genuinely hasn't had any interest in football, doesn't get football. I've never got it. I've never got the kind of the national enthusiasm for it. I've never got why it is that people get so excited. I'm not saying that they don't. I understand that they do. It's like me in The Exorcist. There's really no explaining it. Watching Offside, I actually felt that I understood at least a little bit more what that was about. Because what he does brilliantly as a director is to show you that sense of wanting to be part of this kind of collective event, which is, riotously positive, which is, obviously, as it happens, particularly well behaved, and is a force for good. It is people celebrating. Because, of course, at the end of the match, I'm not going to give away any surprises here, because it's already happened. Everyone knows they've qualified. They win. And as a result of them winning, even though these women haven't actually managed to get into the game, there is this sort of great, national cheer goes up. And then, of course, I said, I want interesting and see how Iran does. And now, of course, I discover that perhaps not everybody following Iran is...
There has been some press suggesting that neo-Nazis are going to support Iran. This is all very, very bizarre, but because President Ahmadinejad has decided he wants to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, and so therefore some strange people have decided that they're going to support Iran. Anyway...
but all I'm going to say is so consequently, having briefly had a moment of understanding it all, of course, now I'm back into confusion. But Offside, a football movie for people who don't get football.